it's the Mike Rogers Show. Mike Rogers here with you. If you like this, that's kind of early to tell you that, but if you like this video and you're going to love this video, go down and click like and subscribe, because today I have a very, very famous person. This guy's very famous. You've written for magazines. He's written books. He wrote about Yoko Ono. I'm making a Yoko Ono movie soon. So anyways, this is the perfect guest today, and Mr. Ken Sharp. Hey, Ken. Hey, welcome to the
how
show.
you doing, Mike?
Fine.
I'm not sure if I'm infamous, maybe. But thank you for the nice intro.
Infamous is better than being famous.
Yeah, sometimes it is.
Yeah. So
Sometimes
can you give us a brief rundown of who you are, what you do, why everyone who isn't living in a cave should know your name by now?
Well, I consider myself first and foremost a singer-songwriter. I put out 7 records. In fact, my first album came out in 1995 on a small Japanese label called M&M Records. In Japan, it was called 1301 Highland Avenue. So I put out 7 albums. My latest album just came out. It's called I'll Remember the Laughter, and it's a kind of an interesting concept. It's 50 songs. During the pandemic, didn't have too much to do besides work on music, and it really paid off. I recorded a lot of music at home, wrote a lot of songs, and instead of pruning the record, because the record's kind of all over the place stylistically, all the type of different things I do. I don't just do one type of style. So I was really proud to be able to put together a record with 50 songs. I'm not sure if that's been done before. Maybe it has been, but probably not too much. But beyond that, beyond music, I've always been really inquisitive, and I've written for a lot of music magazines and continue to do so. And I put out over 20 music books on everything from Elvis to John Lennon and Yoko Ono, to KISS, to the Small Faces, to Cheap Trick. I've done a bunch of power pop books, power pop volumes called Play On Power Pop Heroes. So yeah, I'm totally immersed in music 24/7. That's the thing that defines me.
Wow, that's so cool. So yeah, actually, ladies and gentlemen watching this, I have never met Ken before. And I mean, even virtually. He sent me this album with 50 songs, and I kind of saw this and I thought, what is this? And then I listened to it. I listened to the first, I think, 3 songs, and I thought, why is this guy writing to me? He should be writing to Universal or Sony, because this kind of reminded, I don't know why, Ken, I don't know why, but it reminded me of when I first heard Queen.
Wow. Yeah.
They had different styles and stuff. And I thought, this isn't good for my show, because this stuff is too good. And I mean that, as a compliment, because usually things that I really like never become popular.
Yeah. Join the club. No, I'm a big fan of Queen, because Queen was all over the map. And, I'm from Philadelphia, so I really love a lot of the Philly soul sound and Hall & Oates and Todd Rundgren and all that stuff. So a lot of my songs have, very high vocals and falsetto and things like that. But then I can do other things too. And the record really reflects all that. But I'm really happy that you mentioned Queen, because they're a huge influence on me. And there's definitely a Queen vibe on a bunch of these songs, with just kind of the approach or the quirky nature of some of the songs, or the harmonies, really trying to create these big harmonies.
So,
by myself.
What do you mean? You mean you didn't have a band?
No. Well, I mean, I worked with a guy named Fernando Perdomo. I mainly do my recording in my bedroom, and then I send him the tracks on my iPhone as my GarageBand recording device. And then I send it to my friend Fernando Perdomo, and he adds bass and drums and sometimes a few other things. But yeah, we're pretty much a 2-man team, and sometimes there's some songs on the record that it's just me as well. just doing all the instruments.
So you can play the guitar, you can play the keyboards, you can play the drum. Can you play?
I can't play the drums.
Oh.
I can play guitar, bass, keyboards. I'm not saying in more of a songwriter, not a virtuoso type of style. But writing for the songs, playing for the songs. It's like George Harrison's one of my biggest heroes. Because he didn't impress in a technical. Well, maybe he did for some people in a technical sense, where it's like, wow, he's blasting all over the fretboard. But whatever he would do was perfect. I mean, just listen to the solo on Something by the Beatles. I mean, it's one of the most beautiful guitar solos. Now, for guitar players who are really technically adept, they may look down at something like that and say, well, that's not hard to play. But, I think George's, all his playing came so directly from the heart and crafted these really beautiful parts. So whenever I do things, I would say that George Harrison and Pete Townsend are probably my two big influences in terms of
you mentioned the Beatles, but I think, what was the name of the title? I Hated the Beatles or something. My girlfriend.
Oh, She Hates the Beatles.
Yeah,
that was a single of mine. Yeah, it was a funny song about having to break up with a girl because she just doesn't dig the Beatles. How could you be with a partner that just doesn't dig the Beatles? So I wrote kind of a funny song about that. Yeah, that was a one-off single of mine. It says, she'd much prefer to listen to Barry Manilow. Nothing against Barry Manilow, but the Beatles versus Barry Manilow, the Beatles are always going to win for me. No,
yeah. Barry Manilow, no.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. So this new record that you have coming out, the one with 50 songs, when is that going to be out, or is it out already?
It just came out. It literally just came out.
Really? When did it come out?
Probably a few days ago.
Okay,
just a few days ago.
Do you have distribution in Japan or anything?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, what I'm going to do is when we're done here, I'm going to send you the email addresses of 3 really cool people who run indies labels here.
Oh, cool.
Cool. And they speak English, and you can
good.
write to them and talk to them, and they'll probably say something, well, we can put it out, but we need like 2 songs special for Japan, 2 exclusive songs or something. And I imagine that you have more than 2 songs that you can put on.
I do. I mean, I don't even want to tell you how many songs that I have done for future records. I mean, I probably have, just in the pandemic, I myself and my partner, Fernando Perdomo, we probably cut over 150 songs.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, my heart, I'm driven, I'm driven as a songwriter, and, it's my lifeblood. I mean, if I haven't written something for a few days, I kind of get anxious, It's a way to, really get your feelings out there and really put your heart into something. And, I'm always trying to get better and better with what I do. And what's cool about this album is some of my prior albums, I would just, they're pure power pop. So I would kind of, only include the songs that fit within that milieu. And this record, and some of my past records are too, if there's a Philly soul song, I'll put it on there. If it's a song that sounds like something, the Ronettes would have done, or the Four Seasons in the 60s, I'll put that on there. Or if there's a real folky short song. I mean, my prior album was called Miniatures, and it was 32 songs that were 1 to 2 minutes in length. So that was kind of the concept about that. And it was mainly stuff I recorded at home, sometimes 32 tracks of various, whether it's Mellotron or acoustic guitars or backwards guitars and piano. So that record actually, I was surprised, got a pretty good reaction, but that's kind of all over the map. So for me, the new album is kind of like almost like my White Album, where I'm able to do all different things.
Wow.
Stylist. Yeah.
So, are you going to tour or do anything like that in support of this new album?
Oh my God! If there was enough interest, I would love to play some shows. But it's a tough thing. I'm in LA, and unless you're pretty established, it's a pay for play type of situation in LA, where pretty much you can play clubs, but you're on the hook to sell a certain amount of tickets. If you don't, it's like you need to pay the club $750 or $1,000, and that's tricky.
What do they? How do they say that in English? I forgot. Jeez.
What's that?
Where you have to sell a certain amount of tickets. What's a quota?
That's quota. Yeah.
That's what they use in LA now. Is that everywhere?
Unless you have a decent following, it's pretty much what it's like in LA. So it puts a lot of extra pressure, because if you can't sell enough tickets to your friends or at the door, you actually lose money. You have to pay the club, and that's not the best situation. So if somehow by a miracle this record took off in Japan, of course I would love to play some shows. That would be amazing. It would be kind of hard to figure out what songs to do since I have so many songs on my albums, but that would be a good problem to have.
Well, the Japanese staff would definitely tell you, play this song, play that song. Play
that.
They would definitely do that. In Japan, it's the same thing. Almost all the clubs have this kind of quota system, even for famous bands.
Wow.
So, they'll have a quota, and then say at the door, I don't know, we get, 30% of the money. And, but I run concerts, events, and I never pay the club, ever. Never.
Good.
And I let people in for free. But in the bad part, I never pay the bands either, because I tell the bands, okay, I'm going to have 400 people in here, and you're going to be able to play in front of 400 people, because usually they play in front of 20 or 30.
Yeah.
So everyone wins, and lots of airplay, and the kids get in free, and the club keeps the bar tab or whatever. Okay. So
I've been to Japan once, by the way. Back in 1983, I was in Japan. I visited Tokyo and Sendai, and it's kind of a weird story. I'll keep it short, but my mother was the first woman's professional boxing judge, which is ironic. She's a small woman. She's not in the ring like a referee. She's outside of the ring. And keeping score, and she was assigned to do a championship fight in Sendai. And I've always loved Japanese culture and, reading, a big fan of KISS. So I would always get the Music Life magazines when I would go in New York City and things like that. So I begged her to ask the promoter if she could bring her son, and they said, yeah. So we were there for 10 days, and I had the best time.
That was a great time in Japan, because that was when I came here. There weren't any foreigners. You didn't see any foreigners, did you?
Probably not too many. No.
Yeah, back in those days, there were no foreigners, and I used to get TV gigs and gigs acting in dramas because there was no one to play a foreigner.
Wow. That's neat. But yeah, it was such a great place. My God, I love Sendai, and I was I felt I was pretty brave. I remember taking the subway by myself in Tokyo to get around and walking on the Ginza, and just had such a great time.
Yeah, the Ginza, there might have been a few foreigners there, but most places, and not in Sendai, I can't imagine that you saw any foreigners in Sendai. So everybody was staring at you, right?
Probably. It was weird. I'm 5'7", 5'8", but it was it was a rarity. I was actually taller than some people for once. Which was funny. But, the people are so... I'm not just saying it because I'm speaking to you. I just have such an incredible appreciation for the kindness of the people over there and the culture and the history. Yeah, I've always been fascinated with Japan. So I hope one day I'll be able to come back again.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it here because there's basically no crime. People are polite to each other, and there's just no stress in the air. You know what I mean?
Where were you from? Where are you from, Mike, originally?
I was born in San Diego, and I lived in Ventura, and I was Rodney Bingenheimer's assistant in 1980 to 81.
Wow.
So I was his very first assistant. And so that's why a little while ago we were chatting on the Facebook thing and talking about someone. So that's why this person is I think also kind of mad at me or something. I don't know.
Oh.
So anyhow, so
I love all those people. Anybody that supports me, I'm so appreciative. You know what I mean? It's so hard.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. And I was just like, after, I don't know, 5 times or so telling me not to play something, I was just like, don't send me music and then tell me not to play it, okay? Please. And then this person got mad at me, but that's okay. People get mad at me all the time. So, okay. So, tell us about your writing career. The books you wrote and what magazines you wrote and stuff, because that's really amazing too.
Well, out of college, I worked for a radio station in Philadelphia called WYSP, which was the classic rock station. Mm-hmm. And I remember my music director, certain musicians would come into the stations brought in by the promo person, whether it was Meatloaf. I remember Difford and Tilbrooks, I'm a big Squeeze fan, came in, or Ozzy Osbourne came in. And this guy's name was Mark Didia. He became pretty famous later on. He now manages the Black Crowes, but he was the number 2 person under Rick Rubin at a Deaf American Records, and now he's managing the Black Crowes. But he never really liked to do interviews, and he knew I knew a lot about music, so he would start allowing me to do it. So I would interview Difford and Tilbrook of Squeeze or Meatloaf. Mm-hmm. I remember he set me up to interview Yoko over the phone back then.
Wow.
Lindsey Buckingham, Brian Wilson. And so from there, I got a job with a company that did syndicated radio. And I started interviewing so many different people, whether it was members of the Beach Boys or The Who, or, interviewing Ringo or Brian Wilson or the Kinks. So many great people. And then later on, I started to get involved with doing books. So the first book I did was a book of co-wrote a book of Beatle interviews that I had done, and then the next book I did was a KISS book, a KISS book called KISS Behind the Mask. And from there on, and I did another KISS book, which was my only New York Times bestseller, and it was done with Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons. It's called Nothing to Lose: The Making of KISS. It's a book about the making of a band, so it's kind of a fascinating.
Can we talk on that for just a second? Because KISS is so huge in Japan, and
since the early days.
Yeah, since the earliest, Gene Simmons invites me to their shows at Tokyo Dome.
Oh, good.
But no, I never go.
Oh, you should go.
It's a long story. I'll just tell you, it's like twice something happened and I wound up not being able to go. But tell us some funny story or some cool story about KISS that Japanese kids can't hear anywhere else.
Let me think about that. A funny story about that. Well, I remember once I was out in LA when KISS was working on the Hot in the Shade album. Mm-hmm. And I was in the studio when they were laying down the vocals for a song called Hide Your Heart, which was kind of the hit song off that record. And I remember just, I was the fly on the wall sitting there. And the funniest part was Paul Stanley was doing lots of imitations of other singers and things like that. And one was the Oak Ridge Boys. And he just kept singing the song Elvira. And the last person you would ever think would be Paul Stanley of KISS singing a song by the Oak Ridge Boys. But what's crazy about that is Paul and Gene are really knowledgeable about music and love all kinds of music. I mean, Paul's a huge fan of Elvis, as I am, and loves the Raspberries, and I'm a huge Raspberries fan. And Gene Simmons is a huge fan of everyone from Ray Charles to the Dave Clark Five, to so many other people. He loves Patsy Cline, loves the Jeff Beck. Yeah, I mean, so that was quite interesting, being a fly on the wall while they were working on that album and kind of seeing, the personalities behind the masks, and to see Paul Stanley riffing on and trying to sing like the Oak Ridge Boys doing Elvira was pretty funny.
Wow, that's really cool. Okay, so I'd like to stop this part 1 and then continue with part 2, which will air tomorrow. So are you okay with that?
Sure.
Okay. And wow, so I want to talk about radio stations and continue with talking about your books, and then talking about your future plans and your promotions, or whatever you want
to do. I'm so appreciative. Yes.
Okay. Anyways, it's Mike Rogers here with the Mike Rogers Show, and today we're talking with Ken Sharp, and he's got so many interesting stories. He just finished talking about KISS. And if you like this show, click subscribe or like, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Thank you so much, Mr. Sharp.
Hey, great to talk to you, Mike.